D, man, it's great to have you back on the show. Of course, it is nice to be able to catch up with you again. Haven't seen you since last summer, but I'm excited to have you on to talk about the book and about your fun knowledge about all things indie band and everything and promotion. So we're going to be talking about all sorts of crazy stuff, but thanks for being on the show with me, man.
Dude, it is so awesome to hear your voice and talk with you again. You're always one of my favorite people since way back in the day, man. So awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what's really sad is way back in the day for us was freshman year of college for both of us, which should not be as far back as it is.
Hey, dude, I don't know about you, but I feel like I tapped the fountain of youth, so I'm not really worried, man.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good because I keep on thinking, you know what? Our relationship is old enough to get into a rated R movie.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's awesome.
Oh, man, we have matured so much. So much. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, before we get too deep into it and we get sucked down memory and nostalgia lane, tell people a little bit as the reason why we know each other, A, in a nutshell, and B, why it is that you have written the DIY Musician's Radio Handbook.
Okay, wow, those are two big things to wrap up in one giant nutshell. Paul and I worked together as, ironically, college freshmen, I believe, at KACU on now 89.5. At the time, it was 89.7 KACU in Abilene, Abilene, Texas, not Abilene, Kansas. We were both anomalies in the sense that the station had not previously employed freshmen on the air because the way that it was set up, you were supposed to go through a basic announcing class and get some experience doing a couple things. But for Paul, this is my perspective. For Paul, his voice and his natural ability were that you would be foolish to try to incubate that for a longer period of time before putting that kind of talent on the air. For me, I happen to have worked for a college radio station when I was in high school, so I had a more rudimentary knowledge of the actual programming and the technical side of things. My voice sucked. Paul's voice has always been awesome. What you hear is what you hear now. Like this guy has always sounded awesome. And truth be told, Paul was doing the Pinnacle show for KACU, and it's still the Pinnacle show as far as I know. I'm not at the radio station anymore, but working morning edition on NPR. From roughly 5:30 in the morning till maybe 9 or 10 o'clock later in the morning. If you got that gig, you were considered to be the best of the best at the radio station. There were only one or two people that could do that spot. And Paul was already doing it by his probably sophomore or our sophomore or junior year. I didn't get that until my senior year, and I didn't get that until there was nobody that was available. And like, well, let's throw this dude on the air because we need somebody. But
Sorry about that. I had somebody beep in, a.k.a. the wife, and I didn't hit the right button, so I actually hung up on you.
Oh, okay.
Well, that and you were just laying on the flattery so thick that I was like, man, I'm going to have to shut this down.
Paul does not like to be complimented. Make a mental note of that. Let's just insult Paul. Maybe he'll listen for that.
All right, let's bring on the fat and the ball jokes. Come on, let's go.
Okay. Bring up the skinny and the short jokes, and we're even.
We met in college, but in the process of that, you started a show that far predates mine, and it's still going. And I'm guessing that show led into the book. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Your show, it's interesting. Being on the other side of the coin, the map, however you want to look at the metaphor. You know, when you're in college, you think, oh, if I can get a radio show, I'll be set. Mm-hmm. And then you get out into the world and you realize that it's way more than just having a show, that it's having a show that has a mission and has a purpose and a philosophy and is doing something for a specific group of people, and you're making an impact in a specific way, all those different things. So for the way that KACU, which is a public radio station in Abilene, Texas, and by public radio I'm referring to NPR primarily. That's the easiest way to connect the dots. That's not Christian radio at all.
No.
It was a stretch for me, and it took long after Paul graduated from college and left KACU and was working for, I think, Power 103 or something like that, before I was able to convince our general manager at the time, John Best, to allow me to play some of the music from the show that I had made and that was fairly popular in the indie range, to get that on like the regular rotation for the radio station. But right. what you built for yourself is outstanding. And to do that without having the backdrop and the foundation of the place that you already worked is even more incredible in my opinion. Because in a sense, I kind of had that as a foundation to build upon. I wasn't trying to build something completely all on my own. In 2003, I made a show called The Appetizer Radio Show. It started as a way for me to take this amalgamation of all these different styles of music that I was listening to and give them a voice on the radio. At the time, I was listening to a lot of punk rock and a lot of alternative in, I guess, more of a secular realm, but I had a couple of Christian bands I listened to as well. And when they would play something that was acoustic, I thought, okay, well, I can make this transition over and I can incorporate this in some way. I was trying to get to a place where when you turned on the radio, you weren't listening to the same 15 songs over and over and over again. Right. This was in 2003. This was really before indie music became a trend, before it became something that hipsters were a part of, and hipsters weren't even popular then. Those are the weird kids that you avoided on the street.
Right.
If you had a buzz cut and tattoos, you were a scary guy. If you played music that involved any sort of like screaming or aggression and you tried to incorporate God into that, you were sort of ostracized and not really welcome. And that was right around the time that I got into, in 03, that was right around the time I got into Blindside and POD really heavily, and Under Oath and Anne Berlin, and I've been a fan of MXPX for most of high school, Slick Shoes, a couple of those guys. And, those guys are still in the underground. And I was thinking, okay, if I could figure out a way to get this stuff on the radio in front of an audience and do it on a main FM station, would they receive it? What would happen there? And I believe that people would receive it. I believe that in my heart, most people felt like I did. They were sick of listening to the same 15 songs every day. Right. So that's how the Appetizer Radio Show was born. And so you fast forward in time about, that was 2003. Fast forward in time about 12 years or so, and I started doing a little bit, 13 years, I guess, started doing a little bit of one-to-one work with musicians. I didn't know what that looked like. Really what it started out for me was I was just listening to people submit their singles and their EPs and giving them a review from a radio standpoint. And I was reviewing, I built a framework around it, and it might be very similar to what you do, I imagine. When the submission comes in for whether or not you're going to take on a new song, tell me if one or more of these three things factor into your decision making.
Okay.
Is their songwriting excellent? And by songwriting, I'm not talking about just lyrics, although that is a part of it. I'm also talking about their composition and the overall arrangement of the song. The songwriting as a whole, is that excellent? If you can check that box off, then I move on to the next thing. Is the production quality solid? Does it sound like it was professionally produced? Whether it was done in their apartment or done in a big studio, doesn't matter. Was it professionally produced? Is it balanced and EQ'd? Is it mastered? If I can check that box off, the third box is actually, for me, the most important one. The third box is, do I have an experience here? Yeah. When I listen to this, do I have an experience? Is it an emotional experience? Does it get me to think about something? Does it get me to tap my toe or tap my thumb? Or am I kind of getting into the sound and the rhythm and the harmony? Am I tuned into the musicianship, if that's kind of the main thing? Or am I sucked into the lyrics and where their story is now my story, or my story is now being evoked in a way that I haven't thought about before? Is there an experience there? And if I can check off those three things, you are pretty close to getting your song on my radio show. And I started thinking about that, and I started critiquing people's music from that perspective, and it led to this realization that there are a lot of people that are submitting music for radio that are either not radio ready, or they don't know what they need to be talking about when it comes to what they're actually offering a radio station for their work. And so I started compiling a sort of, if I were a musician and I were to go about the process based on everything that I've done, at this point I had syndicated my show to about 15 or 20 stations, and I'd gone through a lot of rejection, and I'd gone through a lot of process of emailing people that I knew that still would not respond to me.
Wow.
And then I had to change my method and realize that even people that you've got to talk to people a certain way, and you've got to be personal. And if you're not personal, personal, you're going to get rejected right away, especially if you're a stranger. And so I built a methodology and I built a framework around what I had done to become a syndicated radio host. I became a syndicated radio host just like you did. I organically made connections with people and I built relationships. And I started from the perspective of what can I offer you that you're already doing that is already valuable, and talk about that and me be a part of what you're doing. Right. And I believe that if I'm offering a radio station something that's 2 hours of their programming schedule, if I can succeed in doing it this way, an artist that's offering a 3 to 4 minute song can do that exponentially better.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot less time.
Yeah.
And so I built a framework around that. I wrote a book about it, and that's part of what I do. I am the audience growth farmer. And I talk about farming because our success is a matter of cultivating and establishing awesome relationships with real people. And it is a matter of farming, not a matter of shooting to the sky and hoping something hits.
Wow, that's cool, man. And I agree with you. I think that there's a lot there that bands often overlook, which is that it's, you have to treat every time that you're submitting a song to somebody as if it matters, because, it's like I've gotten some songs that I didn't think were great, but they were submitted in such a way to where there was a lasting impression just from them. And I'm like, you know what? This song may not be the one, but I'm curious to see what they send me next, and I want to hear it because they handled themselves well in the process. There's a lot of other bands who in their mind are trying really hard and putting in a lot of effort, but it's the wrong kind of effort, and that's almost worse than putting in no effort at all.
Yeah. So this brings up a good question I want to ask you, man. When an artist takes the initiative and the intention, and you know that they're trying to build a personal connection with you, they call you by name, they address the name of your show, and they say that they've listened to your show and they want to be a part of it. What do they need to do to make that happen? You will actually, I'm guessing, you will think about them a little bit differently and maybe more willing to click on their link and listen to their song versus somebody that sends you an obvious, blank, generic message that's sent out to a ton of people that there was no intention about who they were trying to get in front of at all, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say this. I would say that the amount of bands who do that, just that part of it correctly, is probably 1 in 10.
Yeah, and that's being very gracious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think so.
So in my book, I talk a lot about being uncommon. And in my motivational speaking and in the things I do, I talk a lot about being uncommon. And there's this thing where here's a little truth I've discovered about humanity. We do what is modeled in front of us, not what we're taught. Yeah. And so, especially on social media, where we see people promoting themselves and doing a ton of just self-talk a lot, it's all about me. We sound like Beaker from the Muppets.
Yeah.
The only person that understands Beaker from the Muppets is, and I don't remember the guy's name, the little guy that he doesn't have eyeballs. He's got glasses, the little green dude.
Yeah.
Bald.
Yeah.
He's the only one that understands Beaker of all of the Muppets. Beaker walks around and he seems like a pretty cool guy, but he only knows how to say one thing. Me. And he's like Chewie to Han Solo. Like, there's only one person that understands that. And that's exactly the same as it is in real life. If you spend your time only talking about yourself, there's only maybe one person, if you're lucky, that's going to understand that and care about it.
Right.
Everybody else is going to be like, I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. Yeah. Sorry, I threw the H word out there, but
that's okay.
But I mean, that's the way that it is. But that's what's modeled, and so people see that happen so often. Artists and bands see that happen so often, so they think that's what they're supposed to do, and it's not. What you do to make a lasting impression on somebody is you do something that's different and get them to engage with you. I'm a big fan of a guy that's been dead for longer than I've been alive, longer than both of us have been alive, Paul. Dale Carnegie, who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People in 1933. In 1933, that was prior to World War II. It was prior to television having network sitcoms. It was prior to the rise of the internet, certainly prior to the rise of social media. It was before a day when people had access to limitless information and limitless connection. And in 1933, Dale Carnegie said this: you can make more friends in 2 months by showing interest in other people than you can in 2 years trying to get other people interested in you.
Oh, yeah.
So if that's true in the age before the internet, how more true is it now? Oh, and I have made that a hallmark of my platform, a hallmark of my work, a hallmark of my success. Everything that I do is about building connection with other people and starting by showing an interest in them, because I know it's true. If we as natural human beings want people to pay attention to us. So if you start a conversation by showing interest in somebody else, they're going to naturally, because of the way we're wired as people, naturally be more inclined to engage with you and want to care about what you have to say.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. How often when you get contacted do you find that bands do this already without having had any contact with you or your book before?
Oh, it's funny, dude. I'm glad you asked that question. So it's interesting. I get contacted from people on my radio show, and I've got my own personal site, which is dgrantsmith.com. I talk about this audience growth farming stuff. I've got people that will contact me and do the same things, which is clear that they haven't read any of my material. They'll just send me blanket messages, and I'm reading this, and I'm like, it's clear you got my email address from the Indie Bible. Or, which is fine, because I put myself in there. I want people to contact me.
Yeah.
But how often does it happen that people actually do the things that I talk about and show that they've read it? You said 1 in 10. I'd give it, let's just say for the interest of simple mathematics, let's say 1 in 10 on a really, really good day.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you a question that may or may not fall into kind of the purview of things that you cover in your book or things that are important to you specifically when bands are contacting you. But one of the things that I and a couple of other people who I have pretty regular contact with in the radio industry that is a couple of pet peeves is, one, people have unrealistic expectations of what it is that their song is going to do.
Yeah.
How often do you and I'll, and this is probably a stupid question on my part anyway, but how often and how likely do you think it is that artist submits a song to you? It's a good song, but it's a 6.5 minute long song. How likely are you to spin that on your show, at least?
Well, I'll just be honest with you, man. The Appetizer Radio Show is a program built around showcasing albums.
Okay.
So I don't give two flying eggs, flipping eggs, whatever, about singles. Like, when people submit singles to me, I know that they're not actually trying to be on my show. Because if they wanted to be on my show, they would have heard it, or they would have been to my website and seen that we showcase albums. That albums and EPs, that's the art. We're getting in front of music super bands. I can't do anything for a single. So when people send me their singles, I send them a reply back. I send a reply back to everybody, first off.
Yeah.
Which is uncommon. And again, that's a big hallmark of who I am. I reply back to everybody, and I tell them, hey, if you want to submit music to us, here's the link you need to go do that. And I've read their email submission, and I have kind of an understanding of, there's a couple different types of emails that come in, and I've got kind of a sort of, not generic, but I know exactly what to say to different types of people. So if you've obviously sent me a blanket email and you don't know what it is you're asking for, you're just putting your music in front of me, there's a response I have for that. Yeah. If you're asking for a submission and you want to get featured on my blog, which is the wrong way to do it, because I'm a radio show that has a blog, not a blog that is attached to a radio show, which are two different things.
Yeah.
I've got a response for that. And if you are trying to get on the radio show and you've emailed my non-radio email, my music coaching and music consulting email, I've got a response for that. But all of those things, I'm not a greedy person. I want to help other people grow. And I ask very simple questions. What is the end goal that you want? So if you're trying to get on the radio, there needs to be a plan involved in that process, because radio cannot be an end goal.
Right.
If radio is an end goal, that's kind of like saying, I want to get on the bus. That's all I'm trying to do today.
This is true.
If I can just get on the bus, my day will be set. Actually, my life will be set. I just want to get on the freaking bus. And that's such short-sighted forward thinking.
Yeah. Because
radio is a means to an end, but it is not the end at all. It is a vehicle to get you to a goal. And part of what I do is I coach musicians one-to-one, and I build a framework around your artistic identity, who you are, who you sound like, and why your mission, whatever mission it is. And here's the thing, guys. Every band has a mission. Your mission could be as simple as, I want people to feel good.
Right.
Simple. Red Hot Chili Peppers do that with every song. Yeah. Even their songs that are about and I shouldn't necessarily use them as a reference since they're not a Christian band. Let's say, Michael W. Smith. That's a terrible example because he's not in your realm either. Okay, how about this? I don't know what Under Oath sings about.
Yeah.
Because the dude's screaming the entire time, but it seems like Under Oath's mission is to get you jazzed up about something and to do it in a positive, encouraging environment so you don't kill somebody. Right. How's that?
Yeah, sure. I can go with that.
So if that's their mission, that's what they're trying to do with their music, you need to know what that is so you can know who it is you're trying to target. And you need to know who it is you're trying to target so you can know the vehicles you want to get on. There's more than one bus you want to get on to take your music to the right destinations. And the destination you're looking for is growing your audience so you can be a self-sustaining artist. But if you don't have a framework built around what that looks like, you are only trying to get on the bus, and the bus isn't going to take you anywhere.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure I didn't necessarily directly answer your question.
No. Well, that's okay because the question I asked was obviously very uninformed. So it's all good. You answered the question I should have asked.
Well, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. When an artist seems like they don't really have a plan for what it is they're doing, they're just trying to get anybody to pick them up. My heart kind of breaks for those people.
Yeah.
Because anybody that can pick you up is going to disserve you.
Yeah.
Anybody is not going to help you. It's kind of like going to a dance. You go to a high school dance and you just want anybody to dance with you. You're going to go home disappointed.
Yeah. This is true.
Because anybody is whoever stumbles up and is willing to just say yes. And they probably don't really want to say yes, but they're just as miserable as you are, and you might as well dance with at least somebody.
Right.
But you're not going to go home from that experience and go, man, that's one for the record books. I'm always going to be thinking about this experience. It's going to be a part of my life for forever. I had this memorable moment, and I just, gazing into her eyes or his eyes or whatever, and knowing that I mattered in this moment. Yeah, that was everything I ever wanted. You're not going to have that experience. It's going to be forgotten.
Right.
If you even get to go home knowing that you dance with somebody, chances are you go home not dancing with anybody. And that's the story for most people that submit music to radio. They don't get to dance with anybody. And they wonder why.
Yeah.
Because you weren't specific. You didn't know what it was that you wanted, and you were just hoping anybody would pick you up.
Yeah. 'Tis true. I know that a lot of what is covered, which is pretty obvious, especially with the title as well, is about how to gain your audience, not just through radio play, but through other things that could lead to radio play, like using social media correctly and kind of the image that you put out there. And as you put it, not just talk about me all the time. What kind of recommendations would you have for a band that's kind of getting started and what they should be doing in that arena?
First off, let me. And I should have said this before. When I wrote the book, I created an online course, which is Indie Radio Promotion course, and you can see it at indieradiopromotion.com. I hope it's okay for me to give a shameless plug there. But I realized when I made this course that just like our college experience, if you go to a course and you don't have a manual for it, it doesn't make any sense. So the actual book is a product of, I created this online teaching platform that has a lot of videos and a lot of insight and a lot of me giving you very specific step-by-step instructions. And I wanted to have a what would you call it? Boy Scouts, manual for the forest, that you can take with you, and whether or not you're online or not, like you got this thing you can reference all the time.
Right.
I think there are three big things that you need to do before you even start this process.
Okay.
One, you need to know that your music is radio ready. Talk about that a lot. If your music's not radio ready, you are going to spin your wheels, get really, really frustrated, and blame a lot of people for something that is not their fault.
And can I add to that real quick? I think also
please do.
When you send things that are not radio ready to somebody, you also have a very good potential for burning a bridge. Because when you send something that you very obviously didn't know what you were doing yet, I already have a preconceived notion about you and your band when you send the follow-up that may or may not be a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well said, dude. Right on. Yeah.
But anyway, feel free to carry on from that.
Oh no, I'm so glad you said that, because that's something I haven't talked about enough. Paul, you and I sit in this place, figuratively and literally, where every single day there are tons and tons of absolute strangers who are knocking on your door asking for favors, right? And having spent over a decade doing this, we start to see patterns. Actually, we started to see patterns about 4.5 months into this process. That is exactly right on. So if you send a very non-radio ready submission, I have already, for me, and I'm guessing you're the same, I have already put you into this box that is full of people that have done the same thing over a long period of time. I know exactly what it is that you sound like.
Right.
I know exactly where it is that you're going. I know that your dreams are to be as big as the largest rock star. You basically want to be U2. You think that already you have the capability of performing on a stage in front of 100,000 people and playing in front of presidents and world leaders and, you know, the UN, like, giving you the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, you're ready for that to happen, like, yesterday.
Right.
But you have absolutely no idea who you are, and your music isn't necessarily average, and that's being honest.
Right. Yeah.
But because you don't know how to actually reach out to people, and you don't know how to submit your music that isn't right yet, whatever response you give, you're automatically going to get thrown in that box.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it a zillion times already, and that's part of this evolution that keeps happening. So, I'm so glad you said that, because I had forgotten about that one little bitty detail.
Right.
I was talking about 3 things you needed to do before you even started radio, right?
Right. So what's number 2?
Number 2 is you need to know who your audience is. And actually, before you get there, you need to know what your artistic identity is. And that could be something as simple as our songwriting. Our songwriting is similar to or influenced by these 2 or 3 people. Now, when you and I were teenagers, can I throw out a non-Christian band? Is that okay?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm guessing you listen to a little bit of Nirvana.
Are you talking about me personally or just people in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You personally.
Oh, yes. I do have some experience with the Kurt Cobain.
Okay, so I had a little bit of experience with the Kurt Cobain too, and when I was listening to the Kurt Cobain and his band, I was reading Rolling Stone articles about them, and I was reading these things and hearing Kurt talk about how he was influenced by Neil Young and John Lennon and Paul McCartney and early Beatles stuff. And I started listening to that, and I was like, there's no Beatles in this music.
Right.
What is he talking about? Well, for him, and I was too young to understand, but that's just where composition and arrangement comes into place. The way that Nirvana songs are composed is almost copy and paste the way that your average Beatles song is composed.
Right.
Verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse. So much so that Kurt eventually wrote a song by that title, verse, chorus, verse.
Right.
It was on a compilation album that got almost 0 radio play, but it is one of their best songs. But all that to say that if you don't know who your influences are and how you can say that from a strategic composition standpoint, this is who we are. From a sound standpoint, we sound like these guys. From a lyrical standpoint, we sound like this band. From a arrangement standpoint, we sound like this band. And be able to identify who it is that you guys sound like, that you're influenced by, and who potentially might be drawn to your music for this reason or this reason or this reason. If you don't know that stuff and you haven't taken the time to figure that out, don't start radio promotion.
Right.
You're wasting your time, and you're wasting your money, and you're wasting your energy, because you're going to be spinning your wheels wondering why people aren't responding to you and why you're getting on these stations that, like, you don't feel like actually are part of your growth. They're hearing something that you're not, because you haven't identified what that is yet.
Right.
So know who you are and know who your audience is. And the third thing is you need to have a list of people that you want to be heard on before you start this process. If you're just starting with this massive list of people, and I mentioned the Indie Bible because that's a great resource for musicians, but if you've got the Indie Bible and you've looked up there and said, oh, there are 3,000 radio stations and radio programs I can submit my music to, let me get a CSV file of all of the email addresses. I'm going to make one generic email that says, hey, we're a new band out of Portland, Oregon, and we have this great sound, and we're super awesome, and our new EP comes out, and us, me, single, here's our stuff, we're so awesome, and we're going to send it out to 3,000 people at one time. Good luck hearing back from one person.
Right.
So you need to be specific about who you want to get in front of and why.
Yeah.
And the specificities of that are you've listened to their station or their program, you've had an experience, and you have something you can reference when you talk to them about why you want to be on their program. Because what did Dale Carnegie say? If you show interest in other people, you're going to make a connection. If you try to get other people interested in you, they're not going to give a crap. So you decide, do you want to get silence and crickets from your messages, or do you want to get a handshake? If you want a handshake, you got to do things differently than what's been modeled for you.
Right. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, see, I think that a lot of bands need to know that, and every once in a while, this kind of thing comes up on the show, but usually it's more along the lines of this is all things that happen behind the scene, and one by one, you kind of try to give some bands some good advice, but it's in that moment, it's hard to hear the advice inside the rejection if it is a rejection. So it's easier to hear it before the rejection than after.
Yeah. And here's something. If I can just throw one more little nugget, and I know that I've probably come across as maybe my passion comes out in that I can be kind of aggressive about this. My truthful heart is I love people and I want to see them grow and I want to see them prosper. That's why I'm a farmer. I love cultivating things and I love seeing people grow harvests of excellence and bounty. So because of that, I really want to see you win at this. There's a couple things that you can have right now that will change the way that you build relationships with other people. One of those things is to have the mindset of you are somebody that is important and that people care about you and that what you do matters. And I'm saying that from a non-selfish standpoint. There's a selfish side of that thing where it's like, I'm all that in a bag of chips and everybody should worship me because I'm awesome. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
What I'm talking about is like, if you have struggled at any point in your life to think that other people aren't going to pay attention to you, but you need to be talking about yourself all the time or they won't, which are two different things. Yeah. That's a mindset that is geared towards losing. It is important for you to believe in yourself, to believe in your value, to believe in your worth, and to love yourself and have a positive mindset towards you. In doing so, you can have a positive mindset towards other people and value other people and see who they are and what they do that matters. It helps to build that connection by the way that you reach out to them and contact them because you've already decided on the front end, this is somebody that I care about. This is somebody that's doing something that is important and is meaningful, and I want to be a part of what they're doing. And the way that you communicate that message leads to the connection that you're seeking. And ultimately, when you're trying to get radio airplay, you're trying to get a connection. You're not trying to get somebody to just take one song, spend it one time on the radio. You want to build a relationship with these people where they like you and you like them, and there's a harmony and there's an association between the two of you that benefits you over time.
Amen, dude. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much. Now, once again, run down real quick kind of the websites and where people can grab stuff from you if they want to or if they want to reach out to you, the best places to go to get all that information.
The best way to grow from me is to connect with me on my website, which is dgrantsmith.com. When you go there, you'll see a little pop-up. I'm not a big fan of pop-ups necessarily, but it's one of the best ways for me to be able to say, hey, connect with me. Join my Growth Farmers Almanac. It's an email list, and I actually talk more about how to build your relationships and how to love yourself more than I talk about necessarily just radio promotion, because I believe that one thing actually feeds more into the other a whole lot. Mm-hmm. But all that is at dgrantsmith.com. If you're interested in the book, dgrantsmith.com/books. I've got a couple free PDF books there for you, including how you can get radio ready ahead of time before you even try the radio process. And you can see the handbook there too, the radio handbook. If you want to take the full course, all that information is available on my website too. But I mean, the best way I can speak honestly, and I don't know if this is your story too, Paul, or not, but what has gotten me to this place where I know who I am, I know my identity, I know my mission in life, and I can execute it every day and help make people's lives better is by working one-on-one with a coach. And that's why I do one-on-one coaching. I have a small group of people that I work with, but if you would like to work with somebody that will invest in you on a one-to-one basis, I would love the opportunity to talk with you about that. If I can't help you directly, I know a ton of people who are awesome at this stuff, and I can plug you into my network to get you in front of the right person to help make your goals a reality. But the best way to do that is my email address is dgrant@dgrantsmith.com.
Cool. I like it, man. Well, dude, it's been great catching up, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show and kind of sharing some of your wealth of knowledge about how all of this works and how to better do it. And I know that if nobody else learned anything, I learned some more things, because I do every time we have a conversation. There's something new that I pick up. And I'm like, man, I wish I did that better. I'm going to have to work on that. So
dude,
yeah.
That is a huge compliment, because Paul, you've always been one of my heroes, man. Aww. And it's been such an honor to get to be friends with you at the same time as just respecting the living heck out of all of your growth and your success, dude. So thank you so much for this.